Hi everyone, Mr. Neighbor here, and today we're going to talk about proportional equations. So a lot of times we'll be given a situation, and that situation can actually predict the future, or maybe sometimes the past, if you can see the proportional relationship in it. So what we're going to look at today is a few table examples, and we're going to fill out the tables and then make some equations to predict what might happen in the future, if it remains proportional. So first we have an example where we have cups of dry rice and number of people. So we're going to only have one thing given to us, that 2 cups of dry rice will feed 6 people when they actually mix it all together. Let's figure out what all these other values will have to be then. So if I look at this, I have a proportion of 3/1. So what that means, the 6 was the people. The 2 was the cups of dry rice. So 6 people can be fed with 2 cups of rice. That also equals 3 people can be fed with 1 cup of rice. We have 1 cup of rice. That means 3 people will be fed. From there, every other proportion has to be 3/1. So notice I made this one, and it works out to be 3/1. I need this to have a constant of proportionality. Everything needs to be 3/1. Every single relationship does. So if I'm always having this column in the denominator, then I can kind of guess and check if I want to figure out the numerator. Because to get from the denominator to the numerator, I am multiplying by 3. To get from here to here, I am multiplying by 3. So to get from here to here, I multiply by 3. So that would be 9 multiplied by 3. That would be, big number, 36. Multiplied by 3 again. That's going to be an even bigger number, and I'm going to pause the video so I have time to calculate that. So 43 times 3 is 129. You can see my math up here. I split it into 40 times 3 and 3 times 3 to give me that. And then lastly, I need to take x times 3, which is kind of bizarre. It doesn't tell us how many cups of dry rice. It's just telling us we have x cups of dry rice. In this case, x is something called a variable, and variables can change. This is the predicting part I was mentioning earlier. Variable. So by not choosing a number, we can insert any number. So this will give us out 3 multiplied by x. Just like this really was 43 times 3. I just calculated it out to be 129. This is really 12 times 3. I just calculated it out to be 36. This is just 3 times x. And I can't calculate it out until someone gives me a number here. So I just leave it as 3 times x. So the number of people is determined by 3 times the number of cups of rice that I have. So I'm going to label things on my own. I'm going to call this P. I'm going to call this R. So instead of saying this is X, I'm going to say it's R, because rice makes more sense to me. R for rice. So P equals whatever 3 times R is. And we can test this out. So let's test it out with our very first one. If I know R is 1, 3 times 1 is going to equal 3. Did I get out 3 for P? Yes, I did. Let's try another one. Let's say I put in 12. So I'm looking at this example right here. So if I put in 12 for R, sometimes people put parentheses around those because that's the thing you're inserting in. I have to do 3 times 12. That gives me out 36. Is that what I got out for number of people? P? Yes, it is. And then you can go into the prediction mode. 4 was not a number we had listed out here, but I can find it now. If I multiply by 4, 3 times 4 gives me 12. 4 cups of rice will feed 12 people. Okay, so this is a version of one of the possible equations. The other equation you could use is what we call the reciprocal. So if I undo this multiply by 3, that would be division. So the other equation would be P divided by 3 equals R. Or some people might write that as 1/3 times P equals R. Or some people over here might write this as 3/1. You see how the cop is sitting right there? We just multiply it by the cop. And then when the equation changes, it's just the reciprocal of the cop. It flipped, and the other letter was put in beside it. So let's try another example by scrolling down here and looking at that. Okay, so here we have some spring rolls. Let me erase this box over here. And the number of people. So we are going to fill out the table first. For our table, we know that 6 spring rolls is only going to feed 3 people because spring rolls are really, really good. So if I look at the constant of proportionality, or the proportion, sorry, that's going to come out to be 1/2. So every other proportion has to be 1/2 if I want this to be a proportional relationship. If I want it to have an equation, if I can't get all these to be the same, it won't have an equation. Okay, so how do I get from here to here? Well, it looks like I have to multiply by 1/2. Or maybe some people will say you divide by 2. These are the same thing. So to get from 1 to over here, I have to multiply by 1/2. 1 times 1/2 is 1/2. So if I look at this, 1/2 over 1, that should simplify to be 1/2. Here's the same thing, times by 1/2, times by 1/2, times by 1/2. This one, I like fractions a lot, so I'm going to write it as 25 over 2, but that also equals 12.5. And right here, I'm going to times by 1/2. 1/2 times n. Now I can create my equation. Again, I'm going to change some things because they both say number. I'm going to change this side to be my R side and this side to be my people side. R for rolls, P for people. So this N I'm going to change to an R so that I can work with that. So P equals 1/2 times R. But I could do the reverse as well. I could do 2 over 1 times P equals R. So I took the reciprocal of this, which is 2 over 1. You flip it. That's what reciprocal does, flip the numerator with the denominator. And I put that over on the other side. Because remember, we undo operations. This is multiplying by 1/2. If I divide by 1/2, that's just like multiplying by the number 2. So let's test a situation out. First with this equation and then with this one. So here I have R. I'll put in R. Let's say I'll put in 6. So put in 6. I multiply that by 1/2. And that will give me out the number 3. Is that what was originally given? Yes. So that worked. Let's try it here. P. So P is the people. So P is 3. I have to multiply that by 2 over 1. 2 over 1 times 3, 6. Yep, that's what I got out. So either one of these equations will predict something. And it's nice to have 2 because maybe I'm only given the number of people in a situation. That will tell me how many spring rolls I need. Or maybe I'm given the other situation. I have this many spring rolls. How many people could I feed? So different equations help with different situations.